Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the conference. My name is Cheryl Alvarado and this session is How to Do the Impossible by Jeff Burns, Saandhyarag, and Tommy Hoyt from Pittsburgh State University. There will be a live Q&A at the end of the pre-recorded video. To submit a question for your presenters, click the link in the YouTube chat box. So let's switch over to the video now.
Hello and welcome to our check presentation, How to Do the Impossible. It's kind of fitting that we've got a very modern race car there jumping over what looks like a well-constructed and engineered ramp. That car is kind of analogous to our student information system that was built back in originally some of the code still running from 1979, I believe. And so technology is very much like measuring automobiles in dog years, maybe. I'm not sure, but thought that was kind of a good picture there to show the impossibility of our task before us. And today I'll introduce you to our presenters. I'm Jeff Burns. I am the Director of Development and Implementation at Pittsburgh State University. And with me I have two of the developers on my team, Tommy Hoyt, who's one of our software developer 3s, and Saandhyarag, which is one of our software developer 2s. I really like this quote that I found. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. And the reason I thought that was fitting is because with the request that we received, initially the gut reaction was, you're out of your mind. That's crazy. It's impossible. And so I'll give you a little background on that request. Our academic folks came up and they had a mandate from K-Board to review and implement changes to our general ed requirements. And they've been working on this for quite some time, but the deadline was quickly approaching in 2019. And so our request, kind of the first that we had really gotten involved, was in January of 2019, and they said, hey, we're going to be changing what courses are required for the general ed requirements. Is everything going to fit into our current system? And we were like, no, actually it's not. Some of these requirements are completely different than what the degree audit was designed for, and in fact, even on top of that, our current schedule wouldn't display any of that information in a meaningful way to the student that they were wanting to start to record for some of those new courses. So as we were going along, they were going, well, with that, if that's what we need, that's what we need. So can you have that ready to go by March of this year? And that was back in 2019. And we looked at them and said, no, there's no way that can happen. A new degree audit and a new schedule of classes like that is a 12 to 18 month project. I don't see any way we can condense that into 2 months. So that brings me to the first main point, which is we really had to get out ahead of this thing and really manage our client expectations. We had to do a lot of education for folks in terms of what we needed to accomplish, and really explain to them why this was an issue and why it couldn't simply be done in a short period of time. And with our old legacy homegrown student information system, it's been built over years and years, and some of the items are flexible depending on who built that component, and some of the items are pretty brittle. You can't. It's practically a rewrite, and for some features, it's so intertwined that you end up having to do a rewrite just so that you're not breaking other parts of the system. So we came up also that we were going to need a phased approach. And in that phased approach, we used an agile methodology for our development work that we were doing on this. The other thing is that even with all of this stuff bearing down on us, we ended up finding ways to do what we really try to keep a high priority on these days, which is keeping up with new technology. We don't want to build something and then have it be obsolete in a short amount of time. And the thing I can't stress more is that this required lots and lots of communication, just constantly throughout the course of this project. So how do we get started? As I said before, there was no way to complete all of this request in the time frame requested. And as I also mentioned, we worked with our project governance body, which consists of our President's Council mainly. And they really had to clear the decks on our project priorities to get this done so that we could focus pretty much the majority of my development staff that I have to work on new projects. We really had to focus on what was needed first. The scope of this thing, as you can imagine, with the degree audit and a schedule of courses, the degree audit really spiderwebs into a lot of student information system, degree requirements, all kinds of stuff that we had to make sure that this still worked with our current student information system. And so we really didn't have the luxury of designing something from the ground up or making something that was completely new. We really had to integrate it with that older technology. As I mentioned before, is a very agile approach. Our project management team scheduled weekly meetings and bi-weekly meetings depending on how fast we were going in each segment of the project. And each one of our folks basically worked on defining chunks that we could get done to actually demo live product in those weekly meetings as we went. So it was a really, really fast pace. So the first thing we had to do is determine what do we need first and when. And kind of what we came up with is that for the new Pitt State pathway, which is our the name for our new general ed set of requirements, we needed to be able to display those courses because students were going to begin enrolling in those classes in the March-April timeframe up through the fall semester because it was going live in fall of 2019, even though we didn't have a degree audit for it yet. And so we wanted to build something that would give us a springboard to an entirely new schedule of classes, but we really started out and focused on just being able to display the Pitt State pathway courses that the old schedule did not have the capacity to display. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tommy to kind of tell you about our journey with that Pitt State pathway schedule.
Thank you, Jeff. So my task was, I'm still getting an echo, maybe from you, Jeff. All right. Oh, still there. Okay. Yep, it's gone. All right. So I was tasked with creating this pathway schedule. Now, there were a lot of things kind of involved in the beginning. We had to take what was an old data structure in our old legacy system and move that forward, bring that up into current day code, and make something that's a bit more usable, a bit more manageable. And with that, we're taking things like this old schedule here that really kind of focuses on the course section. A lot of the pieces of data are just running off of section, and we really wanted to bring that up to an actual course level. So a course contains sections instead of just having a bunch of sections here. And so with that, we worked together with some other programmers, I did, and we came up with this. So this was the Pitt State pathway schedule, as Jeff had mentioned. This is really kind of our first go around, if you will, at bringing that legacy information, all that legacy data structure and everything, and putting it into something nice. Originally, this page took about 6 minutes to load, and that was when it was purely running off of our old infrastructure. It was getting the data, all the live data, it was pulling it all in, and we really had to optimize that. Obviously, if you want to hit the classic Google 2-second page load, I mean, you can't be sitting on 6 minutes. That's just ridiculous. So what we did is we started caching things. We started throwing it all into SQL, and that just dropped our load time dramatically. But of course, there were some things that do still need to be live information, things like course count, or things like students in a course, that has to be live. Things like the course availability, it has to be live, right? People are going to be using this to enroll. They need to know that information. But this was kind of, this was our first piece of the puzzle to get out to our clients. This was the main thing that they needed first. And so we worked hard to kind of get this out. We didn't really have any kind of design document or any kind of idea on where we needed to go. It was just get these specific courses onto a new page and make it look good, do things that the old schedule couldn't. And so with that, we wanted to take this opportunity to focus on modern day conventions, things like mobile first design. If you've looked at any website analytics, 50 to 60% of your users at least are mobile users. And so, I mean, that's a huge problem when you're dealing with this older schedule that's in an HTML table. I mean, if any of you have done web design, HTML tables are not mobile friendly in any sense. And so we really kind of focused on bringing things into a bit more of a linear design that would more of a vertical design in allowing it to kind of crunch down and get into that mobile first design. Another aspect, of course, with bringing things up to date was accessibility. I'm sure a lot of you people that work at colleges, you're in the middle of this. You're running into situations where you have these old web pages and they're just not accessible, and you're kind of freaking out. And so we ran through the same thing. And this was our opportunity to take that and say, okay, what can we do to really make this accessible, really make it friendly to people, and get them using the page? And so we focused on that, and we got a lot of great work done here. But this was just the first iteration. This was just the first, our first step into it. And right around the time that this got finished, we got introduced to Vue.js. So Vue.js is a front-end framework. It's somewhat similar to jQuery in its functionality, but we hadn't had any experience with this, and we wanted to see, okay, we see this technology. Can we bring this in, and will it make us faster? Will it make us stronger and better, and so on, right? And so Sai and I actually set out, and we took maybe about a week, I'd say, to take this whole page. First of all, learn what in the world Vue is, Vue.js, get familiar with that, and then convert this page from what it was using, which was Razor partial views and jQuery, take that and put it all into Vue. And one of the biggest boons, I would say, in this conversion was modern structures. So for instance, these individual expandables, we had broken this up before into individual partial views. Well, Vue itself, Vue.js, has something equivalent called components. And so a lot of our work was actually just a copy and paste job of taking what we had as, Razor partials and put it into a component. Now, of course, there were some conversions necessary, and we had to move some things around, but we got this recreated in a whole new front-end framework in about a week. I mean, it really was not terribly hard. It was frustrating at times, learning things that we know nothing about, but we definitely got it done. And, the client didn't even notice anything, of course. But so moving on, this was what we presented to our client, and they loved it. It got the job done, but they also hated it. And the reason why they hated it was because it didn't do everything, right? So we were trying to not only sell them this product, but also sell them an idea. We don't have enough time to give them the full scope of everything. We are working, day in, day out, trying to get what we can done. And we had, and still have, bigger plans for this structure that we couldn't get out at that time. And so once we got this out, we said, this is just the first step. Let's keep going. And what we ended up doing, now that we have a data structure that's in modern technology, it's using SQL, it's not using some old legacy system, we were able to give them a search engine. Now, this is you could call it a search engine or just a bunch of filters, whatever works for you. But in the end, this essentially allows our users to search the schedule, search for what they're looking for, and get what they need. And let's just go ahead and search it. And so as you can see, it's all in one page. This is something that I'm sure you could do in other frameworks, but it was really apparent in Vue that we could do this. We could make this a one-page app, and it could look great, and it could run fast. And we're also using Bootstrap for our styling, of course. But this was that new technology allowed us to really kind of get in here and start running faster and moving faster, and really start using some of these components. I mentioned before that we had broken these up. These are all reusable. And as Sai will show you on the degree audit, he is actually using some of these components that he didn't have to recreate. He didn't have to make it over again. And of course, you can do that in Razor partials. You can do that in other frameworks. But we did it in Vue, and it was just that much more easy to continue making new pages and making things that look the same, function the same, and are very similar. And so, I mentioned Sai, I mentioned a little bit about the degree audit. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to him, and he can tell you all about that.
All right, thank you, Tommy. So what we're going to take a look at today is we're going to take a look at the degree audit like we've talked about. What we're going to do is that we're going to take a look at the old one first, then we'll take a look at the new one. So this is the old one that you're seeing on the screen right now. As you can see, it's kind of like on our legacy system right now. It's a little outdated if you ask me. They still use tables. As Tommy's mentioned, it's not the best idea, especially because everything's so mobile now. It's just not the best. And as you can see, a lot of this is just a lot of text, and that's all it is. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if you're like me, but it's just a little snooze fest after reading a lot of text in a row. And then this is it breaking up into, what you need to take and all that stuff. Again, they use tables for this, and that's all that they really do for the old degree audit. And because of the new Pitt State pathway, the general ed requirement, we had to create a new degree audit just because this is a lot of stuff to look through. The main program for this code is about 7,000 lines long, and that 7,000 line code still breaks up into other different programs that are very long in itself, and it just keeps breaking down. So that's why we decided it'd probably be easier just to go ahead and move it over, especially since with the new requirement, it'd be a lot easier to maintain. So this is the new degree audit. One of the things that, again, we've been hitting a lot on, but I think it's just a great theme, is that reusability. For example, this is what we kind of call a student card, and this can be used in a couple of different places. It's just, basic information about a student, what their name is, what their degree, major, minors are, the basic information about any student. It's going to be right there for you, easy to see. This right here is kind of the requirements that you saw on the previous page. So that's this section right here that you see. We recreated it into this little section, so that way it's a little bit neater, a little bit more easier on the eyes other than just text. As you can see, these are, part of all of this. And then as we go down, these are like the courses that are needed to complete the degree audit. Again, as you see, it's like this. On the old one, they just put it inside a table and just shoved it in like that. So that's kind of like a little bit of a different type of take on it. However, ours is mobile friendly. So in the future, students, if they want to, they can check this out on their phone. Next thing I'm going to show you again has to do with the reusability. That didn't work. Give us a second, I have to log back in. So I'm going to hit on a different topic and then I'll go back to that other reusability thing I was going to talk about. So one reusability that we had was this lookup. So this lookup is a component that we kind of created as a little test for us to kind of put into our own NPM server. That way, any other UI project that needed this could use it. This is essentially to look up anyone who's has to do with Pitt State, and we can look up by their first name and last name and get their PID. Because let's be real, not everyone's going to know what their ID is associated with that university. So one problem that we've had in the past is that some places look up by last name, then first name. Some places is first name, last name. Whereas this will keep with the first name, last name, no matter what page you're on, because we're using this component and that will not change. And if we did change it, all the other components would change too, because we changed the main one. And to kind of show you what I mean, these are two different pages that I pulled up. As you can see, this one's last name, first name, and while this one's first name, last name. So we were just kind of in two different places, and it just made for confusion because some people would try to look it up the other way because they're so used to it. So I'm going to look that up real quick. Give us a second to load, and I'll show you what is so great about the reusability. So while this is loading, one thing I'm going to mention is with Vue.js, one of the great things that really helped us out is troubleshooting. So with the degree audit, as complicated as it has been, we started out with just the basic knowledge, and we gave it to registrar and all these people to test it out, and they tell us whatever problem and whatever doesn't look right. So one of the great things about that is because we gave it to them, and they tell me what the problem is, I can easily use the dev tools and look at my object structure on the page and see what's going on. That way I don't need to hit a breakpoint, traverse through my entire object. I can easily just go on the web page, inspect it, and I can see my entire object, and I can see, okay, so this is why I did this, so on and so forth, and then I can go back to my code and more easily do it. So another huge page that we had to do with reusable components, again, as you can see, we have our little student card right here, as you saw on the previous page. This one right here is another reusable component. This is just to show off the student schedule. I'll get back to that one and where else we use it. So as you can see right here, it's not deja vu, it's reusable components. So this is Tommy's exact same thing that you saw on his page. The only difference is I can enroll from here. So one of the things that came up in our meetings later on that was kind of dropped on us was that we could enroll from the old degree audit. We didn't really know that, and they kind of told us a little bit later on than we would like, but because we have all these reusable components, the UI was not really so much of a factor into figuring all this out. It was more figuring out, okay, how are we going to tie this back into our legacy system, make sure it works. That was the hardest part. The UI part was not hard at all because A lot of this is just reusable components. I mean, this right here, if I were to rewrite all of this would have taken me forever to do. Luckily, since we are using Vue and that reusable component, it cut the development time for this page really short. And then, so now we're going to go back to this little thing. So this is another reusable component. And as a lot of people have known with COVID, what some universities have done, and Pitt State has done too, is we are allowing students to elect to use pass and fail grade for the semester. And I don't know what a lot of other universities do. I know I've heard some universities kind of create like a form that they just write down all their classes that they want to use and then they submit it. We decided to make something a little bit easier on the student. So for example, with Gus Gorilla, he was enrolled in COM 105 for the 2020 spring. And it is closed right now. However, if it wasn't closed and they were still allowed to do it, all they would have to do is just flip that switch, hit submit, and Registrar would get all the information and then they do it on their end. And it's a lot easier to do it this way because we already know who it is. We already have the class directly. We don't have to make sure, stuff is spelled right or anything like that. Everything's already there on that page. And one kind of thing I would like to kind of touch on too is that this page was also converted from a normal Razor page into Vue, kind of like what Tommy's was. And, we had to have that debate of, is it worth doing it? Because as, we all knew this is on a tight deadline. And we need to get this done. We need to make sure that this is working correctly, because this is going to be a huge important thing. However, I truly believe that because we went over to Vue with all the reusability, with all the troubleshooting capabilities that it has definitely helped us with making sure that we hit all of our deadlines, making sure that everything's going to be up and working for our release date. And I'm going to go ahead and hand this back over to Jeff.
So the big question that you're probably asking yourself at this point is, did we succeed? I know I ask myself that question every day. No, we won't know yet. We'll find out in about a week. These products are slated to go live in the 1st of June. So not long now. We feel like we're in good shape. There's been a lot of folks involved in this process, along with my development team. But it's been quite a journey, and I'm sure after go live, it will still be a journey as we kind of get into the release period, and then the rubber really meets the road then in the fall, when students are using it past our incoming freshmen are the main ones that will be seeing this first in June. But a couple things, we couldn't have done it without project governance. We really needed to have the schedule cleared and know what the main focus was for our team, and to get the right players in the room and all of that. And underpinning the project governance was our data from our project management team, scheduling the meetings, getting the right folks in the room, doing all of that kind of organizational thing to keep us on track. With an agile project, you don't have those upfront requirements that are fully defined. And in fact, when you have to do something quickly, we'll make it do what the old one does. Well, what does the old one really do? And as you start asking those questions, especially something that's been developed over a long period of time, and players have changed, you don't even really know, in some cases, why it's doing what it was doing. You may know how it's doing it because you can look at the code, but unless the folks that are still around that have that institutional knowledge, you may not know if the coding is correct at that point, because is it doing what it was supposed to be doing originally? We found some stuff like that that's not the case, where we've taken certain things out because people go, no, I don't know why it would have been doing that, and I don't think it should be doing that. So we've been able to do some cleanup during this rewrite as well. Another big caution here is watch out for scope creep. Whenever you're converting something that people have used for a long time, there's usually some pent-up demand for better features, better things for the future, and we've kind of had to segment those off with our project management team, and to say, okay, these are future development types of things. These won't be there at go live, but we'll put them on the back burner to see if we have time in the end. And there's been a lot of those feature requests that we've actually been able to incorporate, because it's just as easy to do them now as it was to come back and do them later as we were developing the engine for some of these things. And it never hurts to have talented developers. Been really fortunate to have Cy and Tommy working for me, as well as several other folks on our team. We're a small team. I think we've got about an 8 developer shop right now, and half my team was keeping all the other applications we support running, and the other half was pretty much working on this fairly exclusively, these 2 products for the past 12 months. So my hat's off to my team there. Really appreciate you hanging with us in this kind of modified format. I've never done a presentation pre-recorded like this before. Hopefully you found it interesting, and if you have some questions, we're supposed to have a QA session via Zoom after this, and we hope you'll chat with us, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have. So thank you for your time.
Okay, we have a few questions. First question, did you collect feedback from student users as you did for your university clients? And did you get feedback for the user interface design?
Yes, I can let the other guys comment on that as well, but we actually had a lot of student involvement on the design. We started out kind of with some of the students that were related to our areas in the initial stages, but then we actually expanded that and included some of our freshman experience courses that actually had assignments to go in and test some of the later stages and give feedback, and really help develop some of the features in the app that was applicable directly to them.
Okay, next question. Why did you choose Vue versus Angular or React?
The reason why we chose Vue, Tommy, correct me if I'm wrong, is because Vue was introduced to us first. So none of us really knew about any of these front-end frameworks until one of the old colleagues that used to work at our shop told us all about Vue and kind of what it could do. So then we kind of dove into Vue, and then later on we found out about React and Angular. But at that point, we had already kind of committed to Vue, so we just decided to stick with it. And along with that, with the more research we did, we just kind of found out that Vue is a little bit more beginner friendly than some of the other ones.
And we also found at times that a lot of the things that we were trying to do could be done in any of the frameworks. And so there wasn't a right or wrong answer. And we just kind of fell in love with Vue and just decided to go with it.
I think one of the other items there that was helpful for us is that we were already in a C# and MVC Razor partial view type environment, and to be able to actually pull in the libraries that we needed and convert our Razor pages over to Vue seemed like a very natural fit.
Okay, next question. Do you have a repository for in-house developed apps?
Yes, I believe so. The term repository, yeah. We host our apps in Azure, in the cloud.
And that's a private Git repository at this point.
Yes.
We don't have anything that's public along with that. Although our partner that we actually got some Vue training and stuff from, he does open source some of his items in a public Git repository in the cloud as well, and that I've mentioned on other presentations that I've done. We sometimes, if we need to outsource some things and also to get jump started on training, we use a local company in town called Dev Squared, and they are fantastic to work with.
All right, that's it for the questions. Thank you. If you think of any other questions you'd like to ask, go ahead and fill out the form. We'll make sure those questions get to the presenters via email. Thank you, Pittsburg State University. Thank you to everyone who attended. That wraps up this session. I hope you all can participate in the Lunch with the CIOs session up next and enjoy the rest of the conference.